What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I am your host, TJ Zwarich, joined, as always, by my good buddy and co-host, Adam Blevins. It's only been a week, but I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while. You know, that this time between Christmas and New Year's always feels like it kind of exists outside the realms of space and time because you're done riding the high of Christmas and the holiday season, but then you haven't quite gotten that New Year's push yet. So I'm just waking up every morning. I'm like, wait, what year is it? What's going on? But yeah, I'm super excited to talk about What If with you guys. I've got a lot of thoughts, some positive, and it wouldn't be me without some negative thoughts as well. So I can't wait to get into it with y'all.
Ready to dive in as well. So thankful for everyone joining us here. If you're celebrating some kind of holiday or in the midst of it, happy holidays to whatever you are celebrating. If you're not, hopefully still you've had some time to enjoy all the holiday TV and movies that have come out, because there's been lots of greatness with sports left, right, and center. And of course, What If dropping daily on Disney Plus, which we are here to talk about today. Joined as well by a very special guest, our man Neebs, Watch with Neebs, co-host of the Salaam Nerds podcast. How you doing?
Yo, what's going on, guys? Appreciate you guys having me on, man. I'm looking forward to talking about this. What If is not my favorite show, but I do have a lot of thoughts about it, so I'm really excited to dive into it.
I am excited as well. Always a pleasure to join with you. And of course, we were just recently talking the first half of Squid Games over on the Salaam Nerds podcast, and we'll be doing so again. I guess this episode will be dropping on a Thursday on your podcast feeds. And so tonight we will be live again talking some more Squid Games on the Salaam Nerds podcast. And so make sure you check that out wherever you get your pods. And of course, the Agents of Fandom, wherever you get your podcast, leave a nice 5-star rating review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let's start getting into it. Spoiler warning for What If. Before we go episode by episode, Adam, I'll throw to you first. What are your thoughts on this season compared to the first of What If?
So just in comparison to the first, I think this is definitely a step up. I think it took them a long time in the first one. I mean, like carrying into the second one to kind of figure out exactly what they wanted this show to be. It seems like they never really kind of gathered their footing on that front with the first season, but pretty quick, especially with the first 3 episodes, which I really enjoyed. I know we'll get into the specifics of those later. It really felt like they found an identity for this show. And overall, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's been like a bit of a roller coaster. And compared to the first season where to me, it was just much more like bumpy lows. Like I found myself not really enjoying it at all. And occasionally felt like a few moments I was like, oh, wow, that was pretty fun. But this season, I actually think there's been some really good episodes of TV, which has been a really, really nice thing switching out of the first season. So I don't know. There's still been some really rocky lows for me personally. There's a few episodes that I really take issue with that we're going to talk about. But overall, I mean, compared to the first season, it feels like a pretty undeniable step up.
Neebs, what do you think? Season 1 compared to season 2? I know you're not high on the series as a whole compared to some of the other Marvel ones, but how do you feel watching season 2 in comparison to the first one? Do you feel like it's a step up or just still maybe not for you?
I definitely think it's a step up. I feel like there were definitely a lot of hit and misses with the first one. Like as a series as a whole, I think that's one of the biggest issues with it, right? It's a hit or miss kind of show where like one episode could be really good, another one could be really bad. So it makes the series as a whole, it brings down the average basically, right? It's kind of how it works in my head. And I feel like the first season, there was really just the one episode that I really, really like, and that's the one with T'Challa. I think that was a great episode. I love that episode. And this season, there are more that I like. And then you also see one episode that is actually from technically season 1. And you can just tell the big difference between the two when you look at the 2 episodes. And you're like, oh, they brought their game up a little bit this time around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I do find, especially this season, it's much more true to the What If comics. Not in the sense that they're following it story by story, but it actually makes sense to the, hey, what if we change this one small thing? How would it work out? As opposed to, I mean, they're doing some really wacky things with the comics now. So I don't know if true to the comics was with some new What Ifs that they're doing. So I don't know if true to the comics was the right way to put it. But it's definitely been I've enjoyed the stories that they're doing more. The what ifs that they're choosing are more interesting to me. What if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? I'll be honest, throughout that one, like I would have liked it, I think, more with some inserts of different characters, but I thought it was a super cool new story. And that it made sense to me that would go like directly with some things we've seen in the MCU. And so I've liked how they've done that more this one as well. We got a new guest popping in with us now, the other co-host of the Salaam Nerds podcast, Jazz. Welcome. Give the people a little introduction, and what do you think about What If Season 2 in comparison to Season 1? Do you think it's been a step up? How have you enjoyed the season as a whole so far?
All right. So, as you introduced me, my name is Jazz. I am the co-host of the Salaam Nerds podcast. Yeah, that's really it. Let's just jump right into the meat of everything. This season, the novelty of What If was gone, but I like certain episodes more than last season. And I feel like throughout the season, like the 6 episodes I've seen so far, it progressively got better and better. And the episode that dropped, episode 6, I was just like, oh my god, they're really cutting loose for Disney. This is great. And so I feel like it's a slow burn, but you got to give it some time and get all the way through all the episodes to really appreciate what If is.
And as we are speaking right now, there are 6 episodes released. As this podcast drops, there will be 7. We will not talk spoilers of What If Hella Found the 10 Rings, the 7th episode, because, of course, it hasn't released as we're talking. And then as the podcast releases, this will still give a few more people a chance to watch it. They can dive right into the pod, not worry about spoilers for that one. But the episode we've all kind of been hyping up a little bit is, of course, episode 6, What If Kahhori Reshaped the World? Marvel Studios introduces a brand new original character where a young Mohawk woman has a run-in with the Tesseract, and that universe is changed for the better. And it's very exciting stuff, a phenomenal episode. So we're saving that one for last, of course, because it was the most recent episode, but also it was probably the most exciting and top one we have seen so far. But let's dive into the first one. Very, very Guardians of the Galaxy focused to start things off here through the first 2 episodes, maybe capitalizing on the hype of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And we have What If Nebula joined the Nova Corps? Spy thriller. It was super cool to see Nebula in this. I kind of felt like this episode to me felt like it was a straight out of season 1 in terms of what they did with the character tie-ins and the little cameos that they brought in. And so I felt it was a little lackluster with that. They just brought in the regular Guardians. We got Howard the Duck there. I kind of wanted to see some new characters, maybe some characters from comics we hadn't seen yet. And so that wasn't really satisfying for me, but the story itself I thought was really cool. A fun twist, getting to see Nebula in that zone and as a protagonist, because we've gotten to see her go through these crazy redemption arcs in the MCU and go from a full-on villain to one of the core members of the Guardians, not just from a muscle standpoint, but an emotional standpoint. What did you think of Adam episode 1? What if Nebula joined the Nova Corps?
Yeah, well, you hit it perfectly, especially on Nebula as a character. I mean, she's become such after Guardians 3, everybody loves, most people love Nebula. Now, that's just like she's one of the most popular and beloved characters. So immediately when I heard we were getting an entire episode centered around her, I was super intrigued. But I think the thing about What If that a lot of people fail to take into consideration is that what this show means to everybody is everybody's looking for something different from a What If story. And for me personally, I absolutely love the Blade Runner vibes in this episode, are off the chart, that spy thriller stuff, like you were saying. But for me, what I'm looking for in an episode is I want to see a plausible story, something that when I'm watching, I'm like, you know what? I feel like this actually could have happened. And watching this episode, I'm like, you know what? Maybe if our Guardians hadn't been there to stop Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, maybe this could have actually happened. I wouldn't completely rule it out like I would some of the other stories, which that taps into what I want to see. So I really enjoyed this episode, especially getting Karen Gillan back. She gives a great voice performance, and I don't know, just the vibes, the cinematography, everything, what they do with the story. I think they did really well with this episode. It was definitely a strong start.
You perfectly articulated what I was trying to say earlier in terms of the plausible story that was drawn out here of like, what if something happened different? And then now this is what we're getting. And I enjoyed the types of stories we get in season 2 more. You summed it up perfectly there with, even though I would have loved to see some different character tie-ins here from like a critically standpoint, I loved what they brought to the table with this one. And the story to me seemed much, much tighter and stronger. Neebs, what did you think about episode 1?
So this is one of the episodes I actually did like. I feel like I love a noir story, right? Like one of my favorite movies is Brick. I think that it's kind of had that vibe, and I just really like first of all, Nebula's voice acting I thought was amazing, and I love the fact that people would call her Nebby, which is really funny because like people call me Neeby, which is like what my nieces call me, Neeby uncle. So like it's really funny how like you have these little like intricacies and how these characters treat each other and how she has a relationship with Yondu. So it's like very different than what we're seeing. But I love a good detective story. The fact that she figured out everything before we know she figured out everything, right? I love that they kept the audience in suspense a little bit. So this was one of the episodes that I actually really liked. And I think Nebula was a great character to kind of base this around. I thought it was really, really cool.
One part that I really liked as well is we know that Nebula has had throughout her arc such a tough time of like latching onto an identity and to a role of like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm following Thanos, but I hate Thanos. Then she's on her own. She doesn't really know what she's doing. And then she finds purpose in the Guardians. And there was this one part that she kept coming back to throughout this episode is that I took an oath. We have an oath. We took this oath. And that to me made perfect sense for Nebula's character of she found purpose. She found a direction. She found her North Star. And now this is what drives her beyond all else, her code. Jazz, what did you think of episode 1?
So, one, when I first saw Nebula with that logo on her chest, it kind of reminded me of Brainiac. And I'm like, I can't get over that. But then, when you dive right into the first episode, Nebula and Nova Prime kind of have this familial relationship almost now. And that is something she never had with Thanos, like the way she wanted it. And so having this relationship here, like it's refreshing and it's cathartic almost, even as a viewer, that she was able to finally get something there. And I think that's what makes this episode really special, is that beyond just the story, right? There's more to the character arc of Nebula, and I just loved it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would have loved to see some appearances, just like like I said, from just a Marvel fan standpoint, just like excited. I would have liked to see some more appearances than the ones we've already seen, with Groot, with Howard the Duck, etc. It would have been fun to see if like some sort of tease of like Richard Rider, something crazy like that, in animation, just like really go balls to the wall all out. But having said that, that didn't really go with the story they were trying to tell. This was, like you guys talked about, a cool, collected noir spy story, and it was really cool.
What did you guys think of the turn for the Nova Prime? Did you guys see that coming? Was that a bit of a shock to you?
That was definitely a shock to me. I did not. Yeah, because I was like I didn't. But I'm on the record on this podcast. I'm the worst at predicting turns and twists and these kinds of things. That I could see the. Oh man, what was it? Jude Law's character? I can't hear. I'm blanking on his name. That she goes and gets out of jail. Yon-Rogg, is that his name?
Yeah,
right.
Yon-Rogg.
That was another. That was another interesting. Like, why Yon-Rogg? Like I thought that was cool.
Why
like
as the bartender? That was another. I was like, wait, what? But
it's like they're throwing darts at a wall, and whoever it sticks to, that's who they're gonna put in the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. But
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that one, Adam. But that was like one of those exact purposes. I was like, this is like such a cool thing. Why Yon-Rogg? Like, we didn't even like him in the Captain Marvel movie. Like, why is that where we're going
You
here?
don't even go here.
Of course he's gonna betray you. Like, why are we? And I guess that's the thing, is she needed somebody that was gonna betray him, right? That was all part of her plan.
Yeah.
And so kudos to Nebula. I was like that. Her whole knowing what was going on the whole time, I didn't, and that got me, and I liked it quite a bit. I'm always slightly distrusting of authority figures in political positions, and so I didn't fully trust Nova Prime from the get-go anyways. But I didn't fully see the turn coming, and it did make for the detective aspect of the episode to be a lot better. Another episode 2, that I found the what if aspect to be really strong writing from an MCU plot point standpoint was, what if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? The very simple, well, what if Yondu just didn't give him to, what if Yondu gave him to his dad like he was supposed to do? That's such a big plot point throughout the Guardians of the Galaxy, the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Make that small change. What happened? Parts of the execution of the episode weren't necessarily my favorite, but I did really love the concept of what if they didn't return Peter Quill, or what if they did return Peter Quill to his father? A new Avengers team assembling a little early for a makeshift Battle of New York. I thought that was really cool. A couple small things that we'll get to in like the, again, nitpick. They're more nitpicks as a Marvel fan for me, but the idea of this episode I liked a lot. What did you think, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The idea was plausible, which is something that I'll be saying for a lot of these episodes is the thing that I enjoyed, as somebody like, that's what I'm looking for. And I felt like this wasn't all that far off base. Like, I wasn't shaking my head like, okay, this would never happen. I was like, well, maybe if Yondu had delivered him as promised, this is where we'd be at. Like, I have no idea. But what I enjoyed so much about this episode was getting to see this team they put together. Like, I was not expecting, like, I hadn't really watched many of the trailers. And I tweeted about this, but I was just doing the Leo pointing meme like the entire episode, because like we see like Peggy Carter shows up, and like we've seen her in a lot of different things. I mean, not as Captain Carter, but just as like Peggy Carter. And then Howard Stark is here, and then we get Hank Pym, and then what's his name, Bill Foster, T'Chaka, like Wendy, like all these people that were just kind of like one-offs in these little projects. Then we finally get to see more of and get to see them together. And I thought that part was really well executed. I did have like some of the Peter turn back to the light side, like was just a little, I think they kind of moved a little quick on that, because it's not even until like 2/3 of the way through the episode that, like, because when she sets him free, and then they go chase him down to Missouri, and it's just like he just immediately has this change of heart. Like I buy it, because I get, understand like the being under the influence of your father who's kind of had this control over you. Like I get that. But it just seemed like they moved really fast, because I had no idea that was really where it was going until like 20 minutes into the episode, and then we like move on it really, really quick, and it was over. So I would have liked to have seen maybe they plant that seed a little bit earlier. But I mean, other than that, like I still really enjoyed it, because like that's not the kind of thing that I really prioritize in my what if stories. I just want like plausibility and cool characters. So, and this episode gave me that. So I mean, I really enjoyed it.
I think that was the part that turned me off the most too, is they're basing that entire heel turn from Peter Quill and based on, hey, we know though from the other movies that he's a really good guy. We know from those other movies that he grows up to be a nice guy, and so that means this really young impressionable kid, he's a nice guy too, and that's kind of what the heel turn was fully based on. But I loved the assembling of the Avengers as well. I couldn't agree more. The Wendy Lawson one took me off guard. The pulling in the Winter Soldier I thought was just such a great touch. Jazz, what did you think about episode 2?
Okay, so when the Winter Soldier was ready to kill Peter, I was like, yes, do it. I mean, obviously didn't
do it,
but like like you don't see this often. I'm just like, but this is cool. Like, I'm glad that they didn't just focus on Peter and Ego. Like, it was other Avengers also had more added to their backstory, and the fact that the Winter Soldier was willing to do something heinous like this just made me very happy. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm here for. But and then as y'all were saying earlier, like how quickly it shifted, I'm like, yeah, I don't, that's the one part that did bug me. And then how fast Ego knew that the job wasn't being done, and he got there almost immediately. Like, I get it, you have to suspend your disbelief a bit, but that was very quick.
Yeah. That episode almost, it felt like it should have been a season. It felt like it should have been a season or an hour-long episode, something like that. Like, if you're gonna recreate the Avengers movie, recreate the damn Avengers movie. But from this lens, I loved the idea. It started off great, and then it kind of fell off. Neebs, what did you think?
I kind of agree with you. Like, I was really excited. Like, oh, cool, we're gonna see new Avengers. I really love seeing the Winter Soldier and his interaction with Howard Stark, knowing that he kills Howard Stark. I thought that was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so this episode, and a lot of the others, I feel like have a weird tone because they're somewhere in the middle between a cartoon and the MCU, and it's like this weird middle ground, and it just gives me a vibe where I'm like, I don't really like connect with it. Like some of the jokes I feel like are just really, really bad in some of these because like they're just randomly thrown in there for no reason. And that's why I like the Nebula episode so much and today's episode too much because they didn't focus on like throwing jokes in there when you don't need it. And I feel like that kind of throws it off a little bit for me. And I don't know about you guys, but like I feel like for a good chunk of these episodes, the jokes are pretty bad for me.
I found that as well, especially in episode 3. The next one we're going to be touching on, the What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people really love this one. This one was probably the one that for me did it the least. I just didn't need a story. And I totally get it. Pulled on so many other characters, which was a lot of fun. You know, it's spoofing Die Hard on Christmas.
Yeah.
Really great. I just didn't really need my John McClane to be Happy Hogan. I think I think that was the main thing. That was the one part that was like, I've already felt like I got a little bit too much Happy throughout the MCU. Like I like Happy as a character, and I liked him in Iron Man, but I also didn't need such a Happy centric story arc in Spider-Man. It was fine. It was fun. It made me very happy. If this was a weekly release, I'd have been like, that's all we got this week. We got to wait till another week. I mean, hopefully next week is better because they're daily releases. And this was just like, you know what? It's Die Hard Christmas. Woo! You get another one the next day. It was fun. It was silly, but it was probably my least favorite of the group so far. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not quite as low on it. I agree. And Neebs, I'm so glad you brought up the humor because it really has been like so hit or miss in this and this episode in particular. Like I love Darcy and stuff, but it's like sometimes some of that stuff which I'm just like, guys, I don't think whoever you guys had handling Darcy in like the Thor movies and stuff, you clearly did not bring them back here because like I loved early Darcy and then this just did not like some of the stuff she was saying. I was just like, what are you even talking? Like it wasn't resonating with me at all. Like the Die Hard vibes were there, and I mean, as somebody that loves Die Hard, like I don't know, I enjoyed that part of it, and I don't know, this is one of those things that I had to kind of just disconnect and shut my brain off for, which is not really a good thing when you just it's like, okay, you know what, this is just like it does feel weird that they didn't choose this episode to release on Christmas. Like I don't know why this wasn't the fourth episode to release on the 25th because it's like. Especially with the one being on the 25th, having absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. That was a little bit strange. When I was watching that, I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't I be watching this like tomorrow? This feels like completely out of place. But yeah, I'm with you. I definitely don't like it either as much as either of the first two, but I'm not nearly as low on it as I am some of the other ones that we are getting ready to talk about soon.
It's fun. It's silly. But yeah, especially with the What If Iron Man crushed into the Grandmaster, with that being from season 1. Why was that the one on Christmas as opposed to this one when you could have slung that one literally anywhere you wanted? But maybe they wanted to just make sure they didn't expect a lot of people to watch it immediately upon release, you know, and they wanted to have it readily as accessible. I don't know. Neebs, what did you think about What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas?
So like I gotta say it was my least favorite. And there was a part of me that thought like there have been so many Die Hard spoofs now, like Community has done it, Brooklyn Nine-Nine has done it. I feel like somebody just went in Chat GPT and was like, hey, make a Marvel Die Hard spoof, and this is what came out. Like that's what I feel about this episode. I'm sorry. I feel like it's just as random, it's just as like the jokes are the same. That's what it feels like this episode feels like to me. So I didn't love it. But you know, there are parts that are cool. Like it was cool to see Justin Hammer again, even though I didn't love all his jokes. Again, Darcy, I'm a big fan, but you did get to see like some of the other Avengers and what they're doing on Christmas. I thought that part was fun. That was really cool. Clint trying to get like a toy. I thought that was fun. A little jingle all the way action. So like there are parts of it that were like, okay, they made me smile, but I think this is probably one of the weaker episodes.
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it with how I felt exactly there too. Like, admittedly, for me, you do this Die Hard spoof though, and you sub Happy Hogan for Peter Parker. And that's Spider-Man going to his first Avengers Christmas party. None of them are there yet. Everything goes wrong. He's in the Avengers Tower trying to figure out what to do. Make it Home Alone and Die Hard kind of put together. To me, that'd be cinema. But it was missing a little something for me. I think with Happy Hogan being the lead. What did you think, Jazz?
So I really don't have much more to add. I mean, y'all nailed it. This was probably my least favorite episode this season. Whoever was voicing Tony Stark, like, I could not get over that. Like, in some places it was enunciated so weird, and I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't Tony Stark. The jokes just fell flat. The whole arc with Darcy and Happy, like, it didn't fully connect for me. As someone who loves Die Hard, like, I feel like they forced a lot of the Die Hard tropes onto me. Like, it was like, it's probably good for someone who's never actually seen Die Hard as many times as I have, but then, for a good chunk of the audience who probably has, this was just not going to do it. So that's what I gotta say. It's probably the worst episode of the whole season for me.
The episode that was supposed to be in the first season, what if Iron Man crashed into the Grand Master? We, of course, got Gamora, daughter of Thanos, the one who killed Thanos, the slayer of Thanos, as part of the Guardians of the Multiverse in season 1. We didn't know where she came from. We find out it is from this episode, what if Iron Man crashed into the Grand Master, which is weird because it was very Iron Man focused. And then, so that the fact that they pulled Gamora from it for the Guardians of the Multiverse thing still kind of throws me off, because I just still feel like we know of better. Even just looking at the sacred timeline, we know of some better suited people to be in that group than some of the people that they chose. So that one still throws me off a little bit. But having said that, we get this episode now in season 2. And I thought it was fun. Big season 1 vibes, but I thought it was fun. Jeff Goldblum going full Grandmaster mode throughout. A total different take on Thor Ragnarok. And that's kind of what I think one of the things that made episode 6, What If Kahhori Shaped the World, so incredible, was we kind of almost half forgot what it was like to get a totally new and original story like What If Nebula joined the Nova Corps, because we saw what if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes. Well, that's just Avengers mixed with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. What if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? That's just an Avengers Happy Hogan spoof on Die Hard. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grand Master? Well, that's just Thor Ragnarok with Iron Man and Gamora instead of Hulk and Thor. What if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? Well, that's just Winter Soldier with Captain Carter. And so I think when we finally get to What If Kahhori Shaped the World, it was so cool to get this totally new original story. But bringing it back to Ragnarok 2.0, what if Iron Man crashed in the Grand Master? Adam, what did you think about episode 4?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked. Because I loathed this episode. This is like one of the worst. I'm just gonna completely go in on this for like 2 minutes and then we can move on. But like, Jazz, I'm so glad. First thing I want to say, I'm so glad you brought up the Tony Stark point and referring to the last episode, because like Mick Winger is the guy who voices Tony Stark in the show, and no hate to Mick Winger as a person, but you just cannot recreate like Robert Downey Jr.'s magic as Tony Stark with him. He does not do as good of a job. The one-liners don't hit. The jokes don't hit. Like these, they try to do all the same things, and it just doesn't work. But that's not even my biggest problem with this episode. My biggest problem with this episode is, like you said, this is literally just Iron Man Ragnarok, and instead of a fighting pit, we have a racetrack. And that, what does the watcher say in the intro to the show? The multiverse is a prism of endless possibility. If that's the case, it is so lazy and uncreative to just do a pretty much 1-for-1 with like 2 minor changes of something that I've already watched, with a character that doesn't have the chemistry and the gravitas to stand up on his own like anymore. With like I love Iron Man. Like that's my guy. That's my favorite character. in the MCU. I mean, at least it was when he was still alive. But that, like, Mick Wingert just cannot carry him in the same way that Robert Downey Jr. could if he was doing an episode like this. But still, it is so, even if they did change like a few little elements, like pretty quick, and like Jeff Goldblum's great. 10 out of 10, no notes on Jeff Goldblum. He's absolutely incredible in this episode. But it is so unbelievably lazy and uncreative to just do a one-for-ones in a show where you market it as a prism of endless possibility. And anything can happen. And you're going to choose to show me the one thing that pretty much one of the only things that we've already seen verbatim, almost exactly what happened, just with 2 or 3 very minor changes. And then, like, I love Gamora as a character, but I'm like, wait, what is she even doing? Like, it seems like they just had to have some excuse. I know you said this is a season 1 episode, but like watching it, I'm like, wait, what is she even doing? Like, it didn't make any sense for me it didn't make any sense to me for her to be there. And like, I don't know, this whole episode, and I've got some quarrels on the next one too, but this was just a met. Like, I despise this. I think everything that this show should like strive to head in the opposite direction of, like, going forward, because it's lazy and uncreative, man. It's disgusting for them to do something like this.
Tell us how you really feel.
But they obviously we're not going to go in depth because just with screeners and stuff, we're not going to go. Spoilers hasn't released to the public yet, but I feel like episode 7, What If Hela Found the 10 Rings? That episode did what these two, the Iron Man Crash and the Grandmaster and Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper. It did what these two were trying to do properly, where it takes elements of things we've already seen, and it says, well, what if we take a character and plot them in a totally different situation? How would that impact their personality and their story? It does that perfectly in that one, whereas this, it's just like it's copy and pasting somebody in there and going, how does it work? Like almost Chat GPT-ish, as you were saying, Adam. But I feel like that what if the Hela one, What If Hela Found the 10 Rings, that did what they were trying to do in this one a lot better. And even in terms of the voice acting thing for Tony Stark, I think maybe the voice actor could have done a great Tony Stark and done his own thing if they would have just like let him do his own thing. You know, the fact that they're trying to recreate Robert Downey Jr., who is so specific and iconic in the role, and brought that character from a no name to the name in one of the names in the Marvel universe. I think at that point, if you're not getting him, if you don't have somebody who can do a perfect recreation, you just let them do their own version. As opposed to like they're the closest they can do to what we've already
and put
seen.
them in minor roles. Minor role. If this is what you're going to go with, do not give them more than a couple of minutes of screen time where you end up with like a disaster like this.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't think you like Josh Keaton, I think, as Captain America does a pretty great Captain America and does just a great Steve. And it's like, I'm good with giving him as much like clear Steve as you want, you know, but like you got to do something different for this one, I think. And until you get that right, yeah, you just don't do Iron Man again. Neebs, what do you think?
So I have a different perspective about the voice because I've watched Earth Mightiest Heroes way before I watched this. So I've seen this actor do a good job as Tony Stark. And what happens is they're like, okay, you do a great job as Tony Stark in Earth Mightiest Hero. Forget all of that and try to be Robert Downey Jr. I feel
exactly.
I feel like that's the note they gave him, and he tried, and that's just a horrible direction to take. So I don't feel like it's his fault. It's the direction they're giving him, right? So that's what I have to say about that. Also, I feel like this episode was probably the most cartoonish of all episodes. I feel like I'm watching Wacky Racer from Hanna-Barbera, and I feel like that's what it was. And like even the part where like the Grandmaster just melts into a puddle, I was like, all right, this is like jumping the shark. This is getting really silly now. Like, what's going on here? It was the most cartoonish episode of What If. So it doesn't have the tone of like Earth Mightiest Heroes, and it doesn't have the tone of the MCU, and it just has this weird tone that I just don't connect with, and I just didn't like it.
It felt like they just really wanted to make Korg the star of this season at the beginning, and they're just plugging him in as many places as possible, and this was one of them. Jazz, what did you think?
Oh, man, like the way Adam put it, like I can't argue with that. Like it was, when you say it like that, man, it's pretty bad, because you're right. Like, of all the possibilities in the universe, why do this? Like, this is lazy. The Grandmaster here, I feel like, oh, it was just so dumb. He's supposed to be smarter than that, than to just accept a challenge, like just for the sake of plot. Like it was just, yeah.
It reminded me of Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph. Like,
And then like with Gamora going after Tony, and then he's saying, "Oh, Thanos wants you dead," and then just spoon feeds all this. I'm like, yeah, been there, done that, heard it. Like when we were revealed to Thanos for the first time in the Avengers mid-credit scene, my jaw dropped. Right, this was nothing close to it. Like, give me something like exciting again. This was, I was happier about this episode when I first watched it, but then now looking back at it, I'm like, yeah, this is really lazy, and my God, do I hate it more now.
I enjoyed something, and Adam made me hate it.
I hate it. Thanks, Adam.
That was not my intention. Oh no.
No, but you're right. Like, that's the worst part. Like, if you had a hot take, and I could be like, okay, I can go either way. Sure, that's something we could possibly be upset about. But right now, you are 100% correct, and there's no refuting that. Like,
what if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stompers? So this episode 5, I feel the polar opposite in basically every way that I did about. Now I enjoyed both. They're for what it's worth. There's not an episode of the season so far I didn't enjoy watching. It's just of varying levels.
Must be nice.
One being like that's a fun little silly Christmas thing, to what if Kahhori reshaped the world being like, wow, this is incredible. But with this one, I felt the polar opposite I did about what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps, because again, I thought this story sucked. I thought this story kind of sucked. I thought this to me felt like the laziest story of them just continuously going, hey, Captain Carter, we're going to just insert you into what Steve Rogers does, and you're going to be Steve Rogers but a woman, as opposed to giving her own different stories. So the story itself, I thought it was so creative and unique in the first episode, but the characters they brought in, the Yon-Rogs, the voiceless Groots, the Howard the Ducks, it just didn't really do anything for me. This one was the opposite. Whereas, and again, Steve is Bucky, does nothing for me. Steve is the Winter Soldier. That feels boring. That feels tired to me. But I could watch an entire season of Captain Carter and Black Widow doing whatever the fuck they wanted, of just messing around and having fun. Like, I love Lake Bell's Black Widow. And the chemistry that the two of them have together, I think, is just incredible. I love the way they bounce off of each other. It's so wonderful. And so I could just watch those two mess around, and I love their chemistry. That was one of my favorite parts of the first season. But the story was lazy and boring to me. It was just the characters they plugged in that I really liked. The Black Widow and Captain Carter stuff I liked. Getting to see Bucky in the Alexander Pierce role, Secretary of Defense, but being like a good guy there. I thought that was really cool. I love that. But the story itself didn't really do it for me. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, well, before I get into another minor rant, I won't go as hard on this episode as I did the previous episode, but I'm glad you brought up Lake Bell, because what they're letting her do with Black Widow is what they should be letting Mick Wingert do with Tony Stark, because this does not feel at all to me like Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, and that's perfectly okay because she's doing a great job, like as her own. She did a great job in the first season too, and she's doing a great job here with her own version of the character. And I don't know why, if they can let her do that, I don't know why maybe they think there would be too big of a divide with Tony. I don't know, but like, it's proof here. They have proof that it works. Like, let the voice actors come in and make their own version of the character, because I think she's great.
Let her cook.
Right. Agreed. But I'm glad you brought up this being lazy too, because it really is. And also, I had a great conversation on Twitter with Brittany Gorman, formerly of The Streamer. And she made a great point where she said, like, the way to build Captain Carter's fan base and get people to like her is not putting her in all of these same moments, like these beloved moments with Steve and Bucky. Like you said, just replacing Steve with her. That's like super disrespectful to her. And I love, this is not like at all directed towards Haley Atwell at all. I love Haley Atwell as an actress. I love Haley Atwell in the role of Captain Carter. I think she's great. And it's so disrespectful that Marvel like doesn't care enough about her as a character to give her her own fresh stories, because like literally all they're doing, like the beginning of this is like the Avengers, but you replace Steve with Peggy, and then we go into the Winter Soldier, but you pretty much just replace Steve with Peggy, and then you, like you said, you replace Bucky with Steve. And I really did like I'm glad you brought up to the Bucky as the Alexander Pierce, because that was kind of cool. That's the kind of stuff I wish we'd get to see, because like these little changes, kind of like having that ripple effect that creates something big. That's like the potential of the show. But and then at the end, like as much as I love Black Widow, they just did the same thing, but they were, instead of replacing Steve with Captain Carter, they replaced Yelena with Captain Carter and just made it Black Widow at the end. And I'm like, why can we not give her character any kind of original? Like, why are we just, they piggyback on 3 original stories in the same episode? Like, if you want to do it once for like a small, like if you want to just do like like they did in the beginning with the Avengers, just to kind of show them like, okay, like, hey, this is Peggy Carter, she's the Captain America, the captain in this universe, like that's fine. But then they just continue to do it.
Another cool change of Wasp is part of the OG
Right.
Avengers. Why? Because since Peggy Carter wasn't there, she was in another universe to start Shield. Hank and Janet helped fund Shield. Janet never disappeared. They were with Shield from the very beginning. They helped start it up, and so Hope became Wasp with 2 parents at a much younger age. Like that is like a cool ripple effect that we get. Just instead of expanding on it, they just show us again. They try and steal the Steve Bucky moments, insert Peggy, and give us more of what we've seen.
Yeah, and like it bothers me there, and it bothers me with like, because like I said, the end, like the whole last like 10 minutes or the second half of the episode is just Black Widow, but with like you replace Taskmaster with the Hydra Stomper, and then you replace Yelena with with Captain Carter. So it's just like, I don't know, it's disrespectful to Haley Atwell and to the character of Captain Carter to not have the dignity to give her own stories, and it's also disrespectful to the audience, to us, for them to just say, you know what, they love these moments, let's just throw a different character in there, and that'll get them to love it too. That's like that to them, that's like a slap in the face to us, because it's like, write new original good stories. We know you can do it. You literally have done it several times in this season of television. So it's like, quit being lazy and quit cheaping out and just do it. I don't know. These are the 2 that I had my rants on, and I love the next one we're getting ready to talk about. But yeah, I had to get, you know me, it wouldn't be a podcast episode if I didn't get some shots off. So those were my shots on these last 2 episodes.
Neebs, what'd you think?
So I definitely agree with you. I feel like they definitely are shoehorning Captain Carter in a bunch of places where like she doesn't need to be in. But my take on this, and look, I like Haley Atwell. I think she's a great Mission Impossible. But what does she have on Marvel that they keep throwing her in everything? Like the fact that Sam Wilson is our Captain America and we've seen more of Captain Carter than we have of Sam Wilson is just messed up. And if you count her TV show that she had, she probably has more screen time than any Marvel character that's not an Avenger. Like, that's crazy how much screen time she has for someone who's not an Avenger. What does she have on them? Does she know where the bodies are buried? That's what I want to know.
And like, if you're so dedicated to the character of Captain Carter, utilize it. Like, give her a fucking movie. You want us like invested in these different multiversal stories? All right, let's do a Captain Carter movie. Hell, even if it's straight to streaming to Disney Plus, make it a big feature. I don't care. Make it a special presentation. Well, that's probably the best idea. A special presentation where she has her own story in her own universe that it follows, instead of just like getting her chopped in half after saying I can do this all day, and then putting her in all of Steve's moments in What If and just like recreating them. The one positive I feel like they've really done with Captain Carter is the Black Widow chemistry. Captain Carter and Black Widow as buddy cops is just absolutely fantastic. Jazz, what do you think about this episode?
Yeah, so definitely feel the same way about the lack of originality with Captain Carter. And that really sucks because this episode had one of the most touching scenes in the series. It's when Steve Rogers and Peggy were together. Black Widow went away just to like, give him some time to catch up and whatnot. And they played the exact same song from the end of Avengers Endgame there as they were like, about to kiss. And I was like, this is a really cool way to kind of bring that back as well. but then everything else, because of how they've screwed over Captain Carter, just made me not like it as much. And I'm like, they even ruined that moment for me, because this was a moment for them to like really shine as like, you know, a couple that, you know, throughout time, whether it's one guy being frozen, one guy going back in time, like they were always supposed to make it. And it's cool to see that here again, that they're always tying that together. And then of course, right before they kiss, you know, they got she got stung in the neck by that one thing, forgot what it's called. And then, you
Widow's
know,
Bites,
we're
I
back
think?
right into yeah. And so we're right back into Black Widow, the movie. I'm just like, oh great. You took the one great thing about this episode and made it suck as well. Well done.
My favorite thing about this episode was the Iron Giant moment that Steve had, where he just like flew up into the thing.
I have kind of one other part of this that I wanted before we move on to Kahhori, which I think we all agree is the most exciting part of the season so far.
Yes.
One theory that I had, and so I came up with this I originally thought that I was going to have to wait to unveil this theory until later because of spoiler reasons, and I realized that's not actually spoilery at all. I just came up with the theory while watching one of the later episodes. And so I want to unveil it now. This is why I had asked you where you were at in the series earlier today, Adam, because it was actually this episode 5, with them doing the Peggy and Steve stuff all over again, and them really doing like piling on the it just never quite works. It just never quite works. Like these two are almost always together, and then it never quite does, except for at the end of Endgame, where Steve finally got his final dance with Peggy. He finally got to be happy. Now they almost seem like they're doing an accelerated version of that with Captain Carter in What If, of like, let's give her these Steve moments, but have her never be happy and never let her get it. Just always let her get the tastes.
Boo.
And it had me think, what if, see what I did there? What if one of the plot holes that people have, like the potential plot holes that people have the most problems with.
TJ, your mic is crackling pretty hard. I don't know if that's just me. Can you guys hear that as well?
Yeah, I heard it
I
too.
heard the crackling too.
Yeah.
Okay, I wonder if my headphones went out on me before and it turned out. So I'm going to save this theory for later. And instead, I'm going to fix my mic situation. I'll save it for the end of the show. And let's say, Adam, what are your thoughts on episode 6? What if Kahhori reshaped the world?
Yeah. Well, this is by far, I think it's my favorite. And I also think, just subjectively speaking, it's by far the best episode of What If. It perfectly encapsulates everything that this show can be. It doesn't always have to be so familiar. It can be something completely brand new. Like the only thing familiar about this world is the Tesseract. Or about this entire episode is the Tesseract. It's new characters doing the NIS. We get I think is it Strange or Wanda, one of the two at the end. I can't even remember. I've watched so much of the show over this daily release has got my mind just kind of in a frenzy. I've watched so much What If over the last 6 days, but it's like everything is brand new. And also this is a beautiful episode. The colors in this episode are incredible, which I think is something that would translate beautifully into live action, like on the big screen, especially. Like I'm thinking about watching a live action version of the Sky World and all this kind of stuff, like on the big screen. And I'm just like chills all over my body. But this episode is also just really moving and really touching with what they did with Kahhori's story. And like, I know it's not all that, like, it's not groundbreaking, the whole premise of like, I've got my powers and I've also got safety here, but like, I'm going back to save my people. But for whatever reason, it just works really damn good here. Like, I was like really moved by her decision to go back and then to like stand against everybody, the conquistadors, and fight against them and do all this stuff. And like, I knew in the back of my head that the people from the Sky World were coming. But I was like, when they still showed up, I'm just like, my heart, I just felt like I was getting a big warm hug, like all over. And it was just such a touching moment. I don't know, every single thing about, like, I can't even think of a single complaint about this episode, except for that it wasn't longer. Like, I could have watched an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of this, because literally everything was perfect. The voice performances, especially, I was having another conversation about this morning, that I heard somebody say they would have preferred it if it was dubbed over in English. And, you know, personally, I think you're robbing the story of most of its identity, of like all of its identity, if you dub this over in English. And I think oftentimes English dubbed voice actors just completely phone in their performances. And even though I needed the subtitles to understand what was going on, I still really felt the passion and like the commitment and all the voice performances. I don't know. This whole episode, I could just go on for like 15 minutes, but this whole episode is just completely flawless.
All right. How do I sound? That'll depend on how long I do before I transition here. I sound good. Great.
Good.
Yeah, I want to shout out Devery Jacobs for just an absolutely amazing voice acting performance as Kahhori. She, of course, is actually going to be a character in the upcoming Echo series as well. And she's one of the leads in Reservation Dogs. Really great show on Hulu, Disney Plus internationally. If you haven't checked it out yet, she does a phenomenal job. And yeah, I agree with you. Her being a young, I believe, from a young Mohawk woman herself, and then them having like the aid of a whole like Mohawk tribe for this, working in conjunction with them, it really brought out the authenticness of the story. Crazy how that happens, right? When all of a sudden when Shang-Chi, when they have a bunch of creators who are authentic to the story that they're telling, and it brings it out. Same with Black Panther. They actually let people tell the stories from their cultures, and the stories then become so much better than having somebody else rehash it. And so I thought it was so incredible that the way they did that, and it just really, really made me hope that we get to see more of this character, because that was what I found myself doing throughout the whole time, is I'm loving the story and I'm going, where's she going to fit in? Where's she going to fit into this all? What's the I'm happy that they're delivering us this character, but what's the reason? Where's she going to fit in, and what's she going to provide to the larger story? I thought it was awesome, and I'm really excited to see more of the character. Shout out the creator, Ryan Little, and then everybody that was involved in making this happen. Neebs, what did you think about episode 6? What if Kahhori reshaped the world?
Look, as somebody who does not care for What If, I think this is one of the best things Marvel has ever done. This is so amazing. I love the visuals. I love the blue lights. I love the story, and the acting is just so amazing. There are times where I'm like, is she gonna grow to be a villain? I didn't even know if she was gonna be a hero. I thought she could have gone and been a villain. And coming from someone who has been colonized, I would not have blamed her. I would have been like, go girl, I don't give a fuck. You could be a villain, I'm still on your side. It was just done so well. And to see like the brutality of colonialism and what it was doing to her people, and how one side is like, they're okay and they're happy and they're like, we're okay with where we are. And she's like, no, I have to go back and help my other people. It's so good. It's so amazing. Because like even stuff that's happening now, like we're living in America while other people are getting bombed and stuff, and you feel like you should be doing more. You're over here living this like life of luxury and comfort, and a lot of your people are back home and they don't have that. And like it's just such good storytelling. It's so good.
It couldn't have come out at a better time with everything that's happening in the world right now. Like, it's exactly like you said, Neebs. The story couldn't have come at a better time. It was so powerful and hard hitting, and it brought Kahhori has the same sort of inner sense of characters as a Peter Parker, a Kamala Khan. With great power comes great responsibility, of that sense of community and family, of I need to help those around me because I can, because I'm the one who can. And that's why I have to go do it. And it's so incredible. Jazz, what'd you think about episode 6?
Beyond what Neve said, like I was gonna bring that point up too, like what's going on in the world, like it hits so well. This episode, as an anime watcher, I'm used to watching anime in subs, and I agree with Adam. Like if it was dubbed, I think you take away a lot of the emotion and a lot of the intent behind what the words are. And so seeing that, like I'm personally used to it. I thought it was great. I know some people may have gripes about it, but people just get used to reading. Like reading in subs gives you way more emotion and feeling. Like it was just so good. The color grading was phenomenal. Queen Isabella, I recognized her voice actually.
My girl, Carolina.
Yes, Carolina Ravassa. Way back in the day, I was really into Overwatch, and she was a voice actor on in that game.
Sombra.
It was Sombra. Yeah, exactly. Sombra. Yeah. And so having her here, I was like, oh, this is so good. They knew exactly who to get. They got the emotion right. Like, this was just a great episode. And I'm just so happy. I just wish I could share it with the world right now.
That was the next thing I wanted to shout out to is at the end, Queen Isabella, Carolina Ravassa. We've had her on we've interviewed on the podcast before. She, of course, is a good friend of our friend of the show, Anjali Bhamani from Ms. Marvel, Auntie Ruby. And they were in Overwatch together.
Your mic's crackling a little bit again, buddy.
Stuff. Yeah, I know. I was trying to find a way to segue it out right at the beginning. I think my cord might just be fucked. And so I'll transition here, pass this out. Final thoughts on the episode and the season as a whole. Adam, I'll give it to you first, pass the Neves to Jazz, and then hopefully I'll figure this out for one final theory before I close this out.
Well, I mean, you said final thoughts on the episode and then the season. If we're talking for just episode, if we're talking about episode 6, there's nothing else I have to add beyond what everybody's already said. I mean, it's perfect, and I agree with Neves that it's not only like a great what if episode or just a great Marvel episode. It is just a great a great 30 minutes of content, like period. Put it up against anything else. It's truly great. It's not just stacked up in the superhero genre or whatever. But overall, I'm definitely like kind of like I said at the beginning, I'm enjoying this season more than the first one. Now, although I didn't enjoy the first season as a whole, I really did enjoy the Infinity Ultron stuff at the end. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought they landed the plane better than I was expecting, given how much I didn't care for the beginning of the season. Excuse me. But I'm a little bit worried about that here, having seen the next couple episodes. Obviously, I'm not going to go into spoilers. I won't. Just to give general thoughts, I did enjoy, especially as somebody who thinks Hela is the best villain in the entire MCU, and also somebody that loves Shang-Chi. I think that episode is kind of tailor-made for me, so I don't really have the ability to be objective on it because my bias is showing heavily. I do think it's a great episode, but it's also just like when I saw that in the list, I was like, they just did this for me because I love Hela and I love Shang-Chi. So I was like, these are like my multiverse of madness. It's just like my two things colliding. But I won't talk. Then it's like, the last two, the what if in the first season, kind of they use those last two episodes to kind of set up the threat and set up the team, and then like kind of have the team take on the threat and finish it. So it looks like they're doing the same thing with that here. I don't know if it's going to work as well. I'm reserving judgment until I've seen the finale, but overall, I think it's definitely better structurally from top to bottom. But I'd like to see them land the plane as well as they did. At least I think they did in season 1 for sure. That's where I'm at right now.
Having Strange Supreme pop in there at the end of this episode really made me think, like, damn, America Chavez has got to be pissed that she didn't find the Doctor Strange who can also travel the multiverse. Somebody else other than her who can do it, and it's a variant of the person mentoring her. I'd be pissed I didn't find that one. Neves, final thoughts on episode 6 and then the season as a whole. Where do you hope it kind of goes from here?
Well, not only that, but Scarlet Witch can also grab people from other portals, like other dimensions. I'm like, okay, makes Multiverse of Madness even more redundant, but okay, whatever. Yeah, look, I think as long as they have, Doctor Strange come in at the end of the 6th episode, that finally have gotten me excited. I'm very excited to see this new character and what she's going to do in this multiverse. And I'm very excited to see the Hela and the Shang-Chi 10 rings, because we haven't seen Shang-Chi since the movie came out. There's no reference, no nothing. So I'm excited to see that. I don't know how it's going to end. I feel like, can they pull it off? If they pull it off, it's better than the first season. Again, this season still has a lot of hit or misses. So, can they have more hits than misses? That's the question. And I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. But all I know is I got like at least like episode number 6 and I'm happy with it. And the rest of it could suck and I still would be happy with this season of What If.
Couldn't agree more. Episode 6 was just so incredible. I agree. Episode 7, the What If Hela had found the 10 rings, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Episode 8, I will say, as a quick little teaser, it's a lot different than I thought it would be, and I think it's going to be a lot different than most people think it's going to be as well in terms of the story they're telling. But Jazz, what about you? Final thoughts on episode 6 and beyond?
So episode 6 is honestly what made this whole season worth it for me. Like, if I got nothing else from What If this season, this episode alone is so important that I think that it can justify the whole season. Some people may disagree with me with that. I don't care. I will stand by it. This episode alone has saved What If for me, and it was just so good. Yeah, I'm also reserving judgment on seeing what's going to happen next. Just like Adam said, Hela is my favorite villain in the MCU. Very excited to see this. Shang-Chi, I mean... Who was that?
That was me.
TJ.
I had to take my headphones out because it wasn't working. And then now it's on my computer audio, and as I'm trying to figure this all out.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I am reserving judgment for the last 2 episodes. I'm very excited for episode 7. Episode 6 was phenomenal. That's really where I'm at, and that's why I think like this season as a whole is doing better than last season. I just wish it would be more creative. Like, go nuts, introduce new characters, introduce new stories. Like, have fun with it. That's the whole point of What If, and I think that's what we've been echoing like all throughout this entire podcast. Is that 3, 4, and 5, they did things that were very boring, that have already happened. Yeah, no, that's the whole point of What If. Like, you created this whole show to show the possibilities. And episode 6 in season 2 encapsulates that perfectly. And we need more of this.
You know what I really want to see, and I think everybody wants to see this. What if the other half got snapped? I think that's the what if that everybody wants. And we won't be happy until we get that one.
That needs to be an entire
Give it to us.
Give us a whole season on that.
Season. Yeah, like that would be incredible. And there's still like a lot more Marvel animation coming with Eyes of Wakanda, the Spider-Man project, Marvel Zombies, lots of stuff coming here. I'm going to save my Peggy Carter theory for a time when I get my mic working a little bit better. Adam, what are your thoughts on doing a impromptu, high-pressure closing outro here for the podcast so that people don't have to hear my crackly mic?
Well, it's not going to be, it's no TJ's Warch outro, but I think I can do it. First off, I just want to say this has been an absolute blast. This has been so much fun. Neebs and Jazz, thank you guys so much for coming on. First, before we say goodbye, we need to get you guys, we'll start with you, Neebs. I'd love to tell the people a little bit about what you got going on and, plug your socials and all that good stuff. Give it to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me anywhere at Watch with Neebs. So Watch with, and Neebs is spelled N-E-E-B-Z, or our podcast, Salaam Nerds. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm always sharing clips of TV shows and movies and even reality shows. And we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff this week, including Aquaman, Squid Games, Doctor Who, and also What If when it finishes. So feel free to join us. And we always do our episodes live at 10:30. So you could always join us in the comments and give your opinions, and we'll share them on the screen.
Beautiful. Yeah, everybody make sure you're checking out the Salaam Nerds. That's a great show. I haven't been on yet, but I've witnessed the greatness of that show.
We got to get
fix that right now.
We'll fix that.
That'd be great, because I've been in the chat for plenty of you guys' shows, and I love what y'all got going on over there. Jazz, what about you, man?
I mean, Neebs really just summed it up. Salaam Nerds podcast. I am personally more like, low key about my socials, so I just don't really say it out. But yeah, the Salaam Nerds podcast. Thank you for having us on. We're big fans of Agents of Fandom. Like, this is always a good time. Like, I apparently an hour has passed and I had no idea. So yeah, this is great. Thank you guys.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys so much for joining us. To all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for joining us. Everybody, make sure to like, subscribe, give us those 5 stars. Everybody, take it easy. I think by the next time we talk to everybody, we'll be in 2024. So everybody have a safe and happy New Year, and thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great day. Peace.
Peace.